Welcome to the first episode of Unknown Fantasy Origins, the show where we look at the backstories of concepts that you see on TV, film, and gaming. Viewer discretion is advised. Some of the stories that you might hear on this show are more disturbing than they appear on TV. In 1997, Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones starred in the blockbuster sci-fi comedy Men in Black. Based on the 1990 comic book series, the movie featured a secret organization that monitored alien life on Earth and kept it from being exposed to humans. The concept of the notorious Men in Black goes back much further than the 1990s. Mentions of the Men in Black can be traced back all the way to the 1940s. Encounters are considered rare, about 40 documented cases. However, many similarities appear to remain the same. Whether you encounter a UFO or you're merely researching one, you may be greeted by 3 men in black suits in a Cadillac who show up to warn you to stop sharing what you've seen. They may threaten the lives of you or your family, and then are never to be seen again. Let's take a look at the strangest Men in Black encounters that we have on record. Harold Dahl, his son, and 2 crewmen were salvaging logs near the Maury Island in Washington state. 6 round discs appeared above their boat, one in distress. Dahl watched as the floundering disc dropped a piece of metal onto the beach and a black slag into the water, which immediately emitted steam that injured his son and killed his dog who was on board. His son Charles received first aid at the hospital, and his dog was laid to rest at sea on their way home. Soon, a man in black showed up and warned him not to share anything about what happened to him on the boat. He also threatened his family harm if he ever mentioned it again. 1947 was also the year that Kenneth Arnold flew by the north face of Mount Rainier and spotted 9 discs skipping across, like a saucer would if you skipped it across the water. A journalist who was interviewing him coined the term flying saucers. His report spread like wildfire, making news and radio headlines all around the world. Arnold decided to team up with Captain E.J. Smith and First Officer Ralph Stevens. They met up with Dahl to investigate the Maury Island. After a slew of interviews, a command car showed up to take Arnold and Smith back to their hotel. As Arnold was leaving, he saw officers pick up a Kellogg-sized box full of what looked like metal parts and put the box into the trunk, driving away never to be seen again. It wasn't until the next morning that Arnold received a call that a B-25 bomber had crashed and exploded just 20 minutes after takeoff from McCord Field. Witnesses saw the pilot and co-pilot put a box that looked too heavy for one person to carry onto the plane. Armed guards were also present on the scene, which was highly unusual. The left engine caught fire, and while many parachuted themselves to safety, Lieutenant Brown appeared to have stayed behind, ultimately getting trapped when the plane nosedived. An informant stated that the plane had been shot down by a cannon. This same informant had already given information from a secret meeting Arnold held in his room, which could only have come from a planted transmitter which they couldn't find. They also knew the names of those who had died on the plane 12 hours before the military officially identified anyone. You can still find pieces of this plane in a ravine near Gobble Creek Road. Dr. Herbert Hopkins, a family physician and hypnotist in the town of Old Orchard Beach in Maine, had a run-in with the Men in Black. While working on a case of an alleged UFO teleportation, he was home alone when he heard the phone ring. The caller said that he was a representative of the New Jersey UFO organization and wanted to talk about the case. He made sure Hopkins was alone. In the short span from hanging up the phone and walking down the hallway to turn on the light, he saw a man already climbing the steps. Even if the man had made the call from across the street or even next door, there was no time for him to get over that quickly. Although mobile phones were technically invented, they wouldn't be sold commercially for the next 7 years. Upon seeing the man, Hopkins' dog ran to the closet with its tail between his legs and refused to come out. The man looked like an undertaker, black suit, white shirt, black tie, gloves. He was bald and no hair on his face at all. He was wearing makeup, particularly lipstick, to cover his slit of a mouth. His skin looked almost like plastic. The men discussed the case for a while, and eventually the man asked for a coin. Herbert held a penny in his hand, and he watched as the penny turned silver, blue, and then completely disappeared. The man in black described this phenomena as the cause of death for a UFO-related accident. He claimed that the man's heart disappeared off this plane just as the coin did. The man warned Hopkins to destroy everything that he had on the teleportation case before his body slowed. "My energy is running low. I must go now. Goodbye." The man struggled out of the house and disappeared around the corner. Afraid, Hopkins destroyed everything. Ever since, his phone wasn't working right. The phone would be dead. Patients would call and no one would answer, or someone would answer stating that the phone was out of service. Some calls would even drop in the middle of a conversation. The phone company claimed that the phone had been tampered with, but they didn't know how. Less than 2 weeks later, things got weirder. His daughter-in-law Maureen received a call from someone claiming to be a friend of her husband John. He asked to meet with John and wanted to bring a friend. John, out of curiosity, said yes. They met at a restaurant and saw a man and woman in black. The couple invited them into their home, not really sure why they did. The man and woman had trouble walking right. They would take short steps and lean impossibly forward. Once in the living room, the man started fondling and groping the woman, often asking John was he doing it right. Boundaries seemed non-existent as they asked John and Maureen what they like to read, what they talk about, things they watch on TV. John left for a minute and immediately the man asked Maureen to sit next to him, which she declined. The woman immediately asked her how she was made and whether she had any nude photographs for her to look at. When John stepped back in the room, the woman announced that they were leaving. The man froze and finally reanimated, leaving the home quickly, never to be seen again. Relatives claim that the family made up the story for attention. This is one of the most detailed accounts of a Men in Black encounter, so many paranormal and UFO researchers still treat it with some validity. One of the more recent MIB sightings actually happened to comedian and actor Dan Aykroyd. His interest in UFOs has always been present in his work. Most notably, the Blues Brothers outfits are based on the Men in Black. He began shooting his television show called Out There for the Sci-Fi Channel, which involved interviewing leading experts in various phenomena. In between two important interviews on the last episode that they filmed, he stepped outside for a cigarette. His phone rang and it was Britney Spears. She was calling to invite him to be on her episode of SNL. While talking on the phone, he looked across the street to see a Ford sedan holding two tall men in black suits who were staring at him. He looked away for just a second, and when he turned back, the car had vanished. The intersection of 42nd Street and A Street in New York made it impossible for them to get away in time. Only 2 hours later, it had been announced that the show had been canceled. An important piece of evidence was seen on CCTV in Canada in the lobby of a hotel. Men in Black came in looking for a man who wasn't at work that day. They walked around the hotel looking for the man and even questioned some people about him. The men were described as tall and identical. They lacked all hair, bald, no brows, no eyelashes, and never blinked. The witnesses felt uncomfortable under the stare of their large blue eyes. They also had a feeling that these men could read their minds. So who are the Men in Black? Are they just a figment of our imagination? A fun plotline for a Hollywood studio? Or maybe a cry for attention? Whether you believe or not is up to you. Whether you've learned something today is up to me. Please stay tuned for the next episode of Unknown Fantasy Origins. I'm Christy A. Bell, and this was the Men in Black. They're all that you remember.